Max stopped finishing his food. At first, I thought it was the heat. Summers in Raleigh can drag even the most energetic dog into a slump. But by the end of the week, his ribs had started to show, and his fur looked dull, patchy in spots. Max had always been lean, but this was different. He moved slower, slept more. His tail still wagged when I came home, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "You sure he's eating?" I asked Claire one evening as she poured herself a glass of wine. Third that night. She didn't look up. "I feed him every morning. Probably just the new food." She waved it off like it wasn't worth another word. "He's not a puppy anymore, James. Dogs slow down." I looked at the bag in the pantry. Same brand we'd always used. I'd bought it myself 2 weeks ago. "You changed his food?" "No," she said too quickly. Then she shrugged. "I meant the formula. They change stuff all the time." She said. That didn't sound right. But I didn't argue. I just nodded, knelt down next to Max, and ran a hand along his back. His bones felt sharper than I remembered. Claire went back to scrolling on her phone. Her screen glowed in the dim kitchen light, while Max rested his head on my knee, eyes half closed. I filled his bowl again, just to see. He sniffed it, gave a weak wag, and turned away. The next morning, I checked the kitchen before leaving for work. The bowl was untouched, the water still full. Claire's mug was in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim, but no sign she'd touched the dog food bin. I knelt down again, this time quietly, and whispered, "You hungry, buddy?" His ears twitched, but he didn't move. Something was wrong. I felt it. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. Claire would just call me paranoid. Max was just getting older. Dogs get weird sometimes. But I've always trusted my gut. And my gut was telling me something wasn't right inside this house. Claire had been distant for months. Not dramatic, not explosive. Just absent. She still did laundry. Still made dinner some nights. But the space between us kept widening. Like a silent negotiation, we'd both stopped bothering to renegotiate. The arguments were small, but frequent. About bills, about my hours, about the way I chewed too loudly, or how I left shoes by the door. Things that didn't matter, things that used to make her laugh. "You're always gone," she said one night, folding towels like she was packing for war. "You come home just to feed that damn dog and go to bed." "I work late," I said. "Somebody has to." She didn't reply, just kept folding. The truth is, I had been staying later at the office. Not for the work wasn't that important, but for the quiet. I'd finish my reports and sit in the break room with vending machine coffee, staring at the same beige wall until the lights turned off automatically. Coming home didn't feel like coming home anymore. Max was the only one who greeted me at the door. His tail wagged slower now. Still loyal. Still waiting. I made sure to feed him myself after work. 2 scoops, same as always. He'd sniff it. Maybe take a few bites. I started sitting with him while he ate, pretending not to watch. Claire rarely looked up when I came in. Sometimes she was on the couch, scrolling. Sometimes she was in the bedroom, with the door half closed, TV playing some show I didn't recognize. We hadn't been intimate in over 6 weeks. I'd stopped keeping track after the 4th. She'd roll away from me in bed before I even settled under the sheets. I didn't ask where she went when she left the house dressed better than usual, or why her texts became shorter, colder. I didn't ask who Brent from work was, or why he kept liking her photos online. I wasn't ready to ask questions I didn't want the answers to. So I walked Max every night, even when he didn't want to go. It was the only part of the day that felt normal, that felt like mine. And even that was starting to fade. I started checking the food bowl every morning before I left for work. Then again when I got home. 2 scoops at night, 1 scoop in the morning. But most days, it didn't look touched. I didn't say anything at first. Maybe Max was just stressed. Maybe something was off with his stomach. Still, I made note of the levels. Dry kibble doesn't shrink on its own. I took a photo with my phone. Quietly. just to see. 3 days later, I compared the shots. Same level. No real difference. Bowl full in the morning. Still full at night. Water untouched too. Did you feed him today? I asked Claire on a Thursday. Around dinner. She was chopping vegetables. Glass of wine. Sweating on the counter. Of course I did, she said without looking up. Why? Just seems like he's not eating much. She rolled her eyes. Maybe he misses you. You're always gone. I didn't answer. Later that evening, Max didn't come when I called. I found him under the dining room table, curled into himself, tail tucked. I crouched down, held out my hand. He didn't flinch, but he didn't move either. Just stared at me with those same tired, quiet eyes. The next night, I dropped a pan by accident in the kitchen. Max bolted, claws skidding on tile as he ran into the hallway. Not startled, terrified. Not the dog I'd raised since he was 8 weeks old. Not the dog who used to chase thunder like it was a game. When I brought it up again, Claire snapped. He's a dog, James. Dogs get weird. Maybe he's sick. Take him to the vet if you're so worried. I might, I said. She shrugged and went back to her wine. I stood in the hallway, listening to Max breathing in the dark. Something was missing. Not just the food. Not just the spark in his eyes. Something deeper. Like a piece of the house had gone hollow, and I hadn't noticed it until it was too quiet to ignore. I'd learned a long time ago not to confront people without proof. That truth doesn't always mean anything unless you can show it on paper or on tape. I'd been in a situation once, years ago, where someone twisted every word I said until it sounded like a confession. I wasn't about to let that happen again. So I picked up a basic kitchen cam motion activated, disguised as a plug-in air freshener. Claire wouldn't notice. She barely looked at anything in the kitchen anymore. I positioned it facing Max's bowl. Clear view of the counter, the food bin, the water dish. I synced the feed to my phone, set the camera to send clips straight to cloud storage. Then I waited. First day, nothing. Second day, Claire walked in around noon, scooped a full portion of food, then paused. She looked at the bowl, looked at Max, then tipped the scoop into the trash can. Water bowl too, dumped and rinsed with the tap, but not refilled. She wiped her hands, walked out. She did it again the next day. Third day, she poured a glass of wine first, then tossed the food, smiled at Max like he was the problem, sat down on the couch and turned up the TV while he hovered near the bowl, confused. That night, I came home and fed him like nothing was wrong. 2 scoops, fresh water. Sat beside him while he ate. Claire called from the living room. You spoil that dog, you know that? I didn't answer. Just kept watching Max chew slowly, as if relearning the motion. She was good at pretending. Always had been. Smiles for the neighbors. Polite small talk at dinner. Posted selfies with Max when we first got him. All cuddles and hashtags. But when I wasn't around, she played a different role. Quiet cruelty. Indifference with a touch of malice. The camera didn't lie. And neither did Max's eyes. I didn't say anything yet. I just downloaded the footage, backed it up in 3 places, and saved it under a folder named simply Max. Because now I knew she wasn't just neglecting him. She was doing it on purpose. I waited until Saturday morning. Claire was at the kitchen table, still in her robe, scrolling through her phone with a half-finished coffee beside her. The kind of moment that looked peaceful from the outside. I sat across from her, placed my phone gently on the table. What's this? She asked. Just something I think we need to talk about. I hit play. The footage was short 30 seconds. Claire walking into the kitchen, scooping food, pausing, emptying it into the trash. Max watching from the hallway. Her smiling as she rinsed the empty water bowl and walked out. She didn't watch the clip, just stared at me. What exactly are you trying to say, James? You're not feeding him, I said. My voice was even. No emotion. You've been pretending to. Then, throwing it out when I'm not here. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then laughed, short and sharp. Are you serious right now? I didn't answer. You set up a hidden camera to spy on me? She said, louder now. Over a dog? I needed to be sure. Claire stood up, still holding her phone. You've been distant for months, James. Cold. Unavailable. And now you're obsessing over a damn animal instead of your marriage. I stayed seated. Do you even hear yourself? She continued. You're sneaking around, installing cameras, building some twisted narrative like I'm the villain. This isn't about Max. This is about you, your paranoia, your need for control. You're not right in the head. She waited for a reaction. I gave her none. I thought you were better than this, she said finally, quieter now, disgust in her voice. I nodded once, then picked up my phone, slipped it back into my pocket, and walked out. That was the end of the conversation, and the beginning of something else. Max collapsed halfway through our walk. One moment he was trotting beside me. The next, his legs gave out and he crumpled into the grass. No warning, no yelp, just dropped. I lifted him in my arms. He was lighter than he should have been, bones pressing against my chest like they didn't belong under skin anymore. My hands shook as I buckled him into the back seat of the car and drove to the emergency vet, blowing through red lights like I was chasing time. The exam was quick. Blood work, weight check, physical inspection. Has he been eating regularly? The vet asked. I hesitated. I thought he was. She looked at me, gently but firmly. Mr. Langley, Max is severely malnourished. His system's been in deficit for weeks, maybe longer. My stomach turned. She continued. His body's been feeding on itself to stay functioning. Muscles, fat, everything. That's why he collapsed. I nodded, unable to speak. He should recover with proper care, she said. But this didn't happen overnight. If someone's been neglecting to feed him consistently, it's serious. I paid the bill, took the report, said, thank you, then walked Max out to the car with trembling hands and a pressure building in my chest I couldn't describe. At home, Claire wasn't there. I didn't know where she'd gone, and I didn't ask. I placed the vet report inside the folder labeled Max, next to the footage and photos. I backed up everything again, once to a cloud account, once to an encrypted drive I kept in my desk drawer. I didn't tell her about the vet visit, didn't mention Max's collapse. Because now this wasn't about marriage or miscommunication. This was about harm. Deliberate, targeted, sustained. And people like Claire always think they're too clever to get caught. She hadn't seen anything yet. This wasn't the first time Claire had found a quiet way to hurt something I loved. She never yelled, never broke dishes. That would have been too obvious. Claire punished in silence, through absence, through withheld affection, through tiny acts that could always be explained away. If you weren't paying attention, you'd miss it entirely. But I'd been paying attention for years. I just hadn't admitted it to myself. She used to go days without speaking after a disagreement. Not even a look. Just drifted through the house like I wasn't there, leaving silence in every room she exited. When she forgave me always for things I hadn't done, it would come suddenly, like a switch flipped. A kiss on the cheek. A shared joke, like the freeze hadn't happened. Affection had become a reward. Something I had to earn back. Now I started wondering what else had been punishment. The ignored texts when I worked late. The subtle jabs about how much I doted on Max. The way she complimented other men in front of me, always laughing as if it meant nothing. And now this. Starving a dog doesn't look like abuse if you're the one controlling the portions. And she knew I wouldn't see it because she made sure I wasn't home too. It wasn't negligence. It wasn't forgetfulness. It was deliberate. I started going back through photos, texts, conversations I'd written off. Patterns emerged. Holidays, she forgot to make plans. Friends of mine she didn't like who stopped coming around. Subtle sabotage. dressed up as miscommunication. I looked over at Max, still weak, curled at the foot of my bed, watching me with tired eyes. This wasn't just about him anymore. It never was. I added 2 more cameras. One in the hallway, one in the living room. I placed them high, discreet. Claire never noticed details, unless they involved her. I synced the feeds to the same cloud account, encrypted everything, labeled the folders with dates, times, systematic, no emotion. Within the week, I had more than I needed. One afternoon, Claire walked past Max, who lay quietly on the rug. She looked down at him like he was something stuck to her shoe. "You're lucky. He still cares about you," she said softly under her breath. Pathetic. Another Cliffer reading a text from me. "Can you feed Max around 2 today?" She deleted it. Didn't answer. Didn't feed him. Sometimes, she'd pour a small scoop into the bowl, then tip it into the sink before walking out the door. No reaction. Just routine. In one clip, she leaned down next to Max and whispered, "He's not going to believe you, you know." And maybe she was right. Most people wouldn't. The house was clean. Claire smiled in public. She didn't scream. She didn't hit. But abuse doesn't always come with bruises. I compiled the footage, labeled the worst clips, built a timeline, morning by morning, night by night. Max started to eat again when I was home. Slowly, cautiously, like he wasn't sure if it was real. I started coming home earlier, leaving work unfinished. Nothing there mattered more than this. The folder was growing. Dozens of files, all backed up, all secure, all named with a single word. Evidence. I didn't go to a lawyer first. I went to Mara. She's my older sister. Grew up knowing how to keep her voice even when everything else fell apart. She works as a paralegal for a mid-sized firm 2 towns over. Divorce, estate planning, domestic cases. She'd seen a lot, not easily rattled. I asked her to meet me for lunch at a quiet diner near the edge of town. She showed up in her usual way-button blouse, legal pad in her purse, expression neutral until it had to change. "I need you to look at something," I said after we ordered. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder, played the clip where Claire dumped Max's food into the trash with a smile, then turned up the TV. Mara didn't say anything until the second video, the one where Claire whispered, "He's not going to believe you." When it ended, she leaned back, folded her hands on the table. "James," she said, slowly, "this isn't just neglect." I didn't respond. "This is intentional. It's abuse. And not just toward Max." She paused. "This could be considered coercive control. There's a legal category for that now. Psychological and emotional manipulation, especially with the documentation you've got." I nodded once. She looked at me harder. "Are you okay?" I wasn't, but I said, "I'm managing. You need to keep documenting. Keep a timeline. Keep everything off-site and backed up. No confrontation yet. But James..." "Yeah?" "You need to think about getting out. This isn't going to get better." I didn't answer, but I didn't disagree either. A week later, Claire started talking louder when she was on the phone. I'd walk into the room and she wouldn't hang up anymore. Just let the conversation keep going while her eyes flicked toward me. "He's just not himself lately," she said once. "Withdrawn. Like he's obsessed with that dog. I'm worried." Another time, "I think something's really wrong. He's not sleeping. He's always watching me like I've done something." To her parents, "You always said James was a little intense. I'm starting to see it." To friends, "He's filming me, you know. He set up cameras. He says it's for security, but I don't know." I said nothing. She didn't confront me directly, just started seeding the narrative, building the version of the story she wanted them to believe. It was familiar, her need to get ahead of the truth, to plant doubt before I could speak. I didn't push back, didn't explain myself. Didn't defend. I just kept feeding Max. Kept coming home early. Kept checking the cameras. Collecting the timestamps. Building the case she didn't know I had. Let her keep talking. Let her keep twisting. Let her dig. Because eventually, she was going to hit the bottom. And I'd be standing there with everything she thought she'd buried. Just waiting. The attorney's office was in a nondescript building behind a strip mall. The kind of place that didn't attract attention. That was what I wanted. No drama. No spectacle. Just clarity. His name was Andrew Fitch. Late 40s. Direct. No small talk. He listened while I laid it out. Facts only. No speculation. No venting. I showed him the footage, the vet report, the timeline. He didn't flinch. When I was done, he leaned back and tapped his pen once. You've built the foundation. Now it's about how we execute. He laid out a quiet path, a way to file without tipping her off too soon. We'd draft the paperwork and hold it. Serve it only after I'd moved out. Assets protected. The dog safe. You'll need to move funds, he said. Anything in joint accounts will be considered community property unless we act now. Same with the house if she tries to claim emotional distress. I nodded. I'd already started. That night, I transferred the bulk of my savings into an account she didn't know existed. Closed the old one. Changed passwords. Forwarded sensitive mail to Mara's address. 2 days later, I packed a small bag and drove Max to Mara's place. He climbed into the passenger seat without hesitation. No hesitation. No resistance. Like he knew. Mara hugged me at the door. He's safe here, she said. I nodded. Back at home, Claire was on the phone again. Her voice dropped when she saw me. He's right here, she said. Then gave me a tight smile. You okay? Fine. I logged her behavior each night after she went to bed. Times she stayed out too late. Times she deleted messages. Times she muttered things under her breath. She thought I couldn't hear. I didn't argue. I didn't warn her. I just documented everything. She didn't know it yet, but her part in this story was almost over. I waited for a Monday. She had her usual routine. Pilates at 9. Coffee after. Home by noon. Predictable, even in chaos. While she was out, I moved quickly. The essentials were already packed. Clothes, documents, laptop, hard drives, a duffel bag and a file box. Nothing sentimental, just what mattered. I walked room to room one last time. The silence felt different now, not cold, not tense, just empty, like something had been removed finally. Before I left, I placed a single envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, printed stills from the footage. The vet's report. A USB drive with labeled video files. A signed letter explaining everything in plain, quiet language. A draft of the divorce filing, clipped neatly to the top. No threats, no accusations. Just facts. Documented. Dated. Undeniable. By the time she got home, the house was nearly bare. My clothes were gone. My tools. The framed photo of Max and me by the lake, the one she always moved to the guest room when we fought, was no longer on the shelf. She would walk in, expecting routine. She'd find absence instead. Max was already at Mara's, sleeping soundly in the sunroom, away from all of it. My phone stayed off that night. No texts. No calls. No reaction. I didn't need to watch her fall apart. I'd already walked away. And some endings don't come with explosions. Just an open door. And silence. Claire's first move was to cry. Not to me. Not to Mara. But to everyone else. She posted vague updates online. Long captions under old couple photos. All lowercase. Peppered with phrases like, feeling betrayed, and trying to stay strong. Comments poured in. Friends, co-workers, cousins we hadn't spoken to in years. They all offered sympathy. She told her parents I'd snapped. Said I'd abandoned the marriage, taken the dog, emptied the accounts. Said I'd been spiraling for months. Obsessed with surveillance, she added. He's not well. It might have worked if I hadn't already made my own preparations. 2 days before I left, I sent a carefully worded message to a select group. Her parents, my extended family, a few mutual friends. No rants, no bitterness, just a link to a private folder. The evidence. The vet report. The timeline. Mara sent another copy to Claire's employer HR, flagged it for review. Then she forwarded a shorter reel to a local animal welfare group she had contacts with from an old internship. They opened a case immediately. I stayed quiet through all of it. No statements. No corrections. Just watched from a distance, while her narrative unraveled on its own. One by one, the likes on her posts dropped off. The comments thinned. Friends stopped replying. Even her mother sent Mara a message saying simply, "We didn't know. I'm so sorry." Claire tried to regain control, but the truth had already landed. Not with volume, but with clarity. People didn't see a jilted wife. They saw a woman who had starved a dog. The formal citation came by mail. Animal neglect. Misdemeanor level. A fine, mandatory counseling, and a restriction on owning pets for 3 years. It wouldn't lead to jail time, but it was public record. Her name was on it. So was Max's. The divorce finalized without resistance. My attorney walked it through in under 6 weeks. Claire didn't fight for the house, didn't mention spousal support, didn't request visitation for Max. Whether it was guilt, shame, or legal advice, I didn't know. I kept the house. Quiet place. Clean slate. I repainted the bedroom, changed the locks, donated the old wine glasses. Max adjusted faster than I expected. He gained weight, slept better. No more flinching at sudden noises. He followed me from room to room, always close, always watching. We were both healing, in our own ways. Claire faded from our circle. She deleted her accounts, stopped answering texts. Friends stopped asking about her. Family stopped defending her. The social gravity she once enjoyed had gone cold. Some people vanish in drama. Others vanish in silence. Claire vanished in shame. One afternoon, Mara dropped by with groceries. She found Max asleep on the couch and me fixing a cabinet hinge that had come loose months ago. She looked around the living room and said, "It's quieter now." I nodded. "It's clean." She handed me a folder with the final paperwork. "It's done," she said. I held it for a long second, then slipped it into the drawer. Some endings don't need to be celebrated, just acknowledged, and then left behind. The house feels different now. Still the same layout, same creaky step by the back door, same kitchen cabinets I keep meaning to replace, but the air has changed. Softer, lighter, quieter, in a way that doesn't echo. Max sleeps by the window most days. He's filled out again, ribs no longer sharp, fur thick and gold. When I walk into a room, he lifts his head and waits for my voice. Not out of fear, just habit. Trust. Slowly rebuilt. We have a routine now. Morning walks. Long weekends. I cook more. I leave the radio on sometimes, just for background. The silence isn't heavy anymore. It's peace. The files are still backed up. I haven't looked at them in months. They sit in a folder I don't open, on a drive I don't touch. Not because I've forgotten, but because I no longer need to remember every detail to justify what happened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break things or throw accusations. I didn't need to. I raised evidence. I let her show the truth through her own choices. That was enough. Some days I think about the version of me that would have fought harder, argued louder, tried to make her change. I don't miss him. One evening, Max and I walk through the park near downtown. The sky is low and orange. Streetlights blink on one by one. Ahead of us, a couple stands by a bench. Mid-argument, voices sharp, gestures cutting the air. I recognize the rhythm. Control disguised as concern. distance framed as disappointment. I walk past without stopping. Max trots beside me, ears relaxed. A faint smile forms, not smug, not cruel, just quiet recognition. We keep walking. Freedom doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like a leash in your hand, a dog at your side, and no one waiting at home to question where you've been. Claire doesn't come up anymore. Not in conversation, not in thought. Whatever she became at the end of our marriage is no longer my responsibility to understand. Max looks up at me as we cross the street. I give him a nod, and we move forward. We're safe now. We're home. This story was brutal, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.